Hey everybody, welcome to another week 3 here on the Deep Cave Podcast. Justin is still on vacation. I don't know where he is. We'll check in with him in a couple weeks. But I need to talk comics, and the first person that came to mind was our buddy Paul over in the Discord. Hey, Paul.
Darrin, how are you, good sir?
I'm doing great, and you know him as Gun Graves, and I know you were doing Brewtendo. Are you guys still doing the Brewtendo podcast?
That's very sporadic, just like the
Okay.
TLDR.
Yeah.
It's tough because there's 4 of us, so it's 4 different schedules, so it is kind of like on a little bit of a hiatus right now. But that was, it was fun. It was mostly on video games, not so much comics. But that's so I do have some experience, talking to a podcast group.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm very honored to be here. This, I've been a fan for you guys for a long time, and this is yeah, it's a great privilege to be here.
Well, don't oversell it too much because it's just us. But Paul, you've got like your weekly posts of all the comics that you picked up. So you were the first person that came to mind when we were talking about Justin's going to take a vacation, and everyone agreed that it'd be great to have you contribute in this way. So since you buy a lot of comics, are you familiar with Valiant?
Not very. I do remember them. When I was younger, growing up, because I think it came out, I believe, in like what, 89, I think, when it started.
Yeah.
So in the 90s, growing up, I was mostly an X-Men guy, Marvel, and I just kind of just dabbled, I think, and just if my parents might take me to like a shop or swap meet that just might happen to have comics, and most of the time, they would just rummage through the dollar bins, just kind of grabbing what I had. And I do remember seeing one that was drawn to was the Magnus, the robot fighter guy.
Yeah.
So that, I remember reading a few of those, but I never really got into like a lot of the other characters, the Exo Man of War, the Bloodshots. So this is going to be a bit of a learning journey for me.
Yeah. So for me, and well, first let's go ahead and give you guys some of the backstory of Valiant Comics. So this all kind of got started back in the 80s, the early 80s, when Jim Shooter was editor-in-chief of Marvel. And, when a bunch of writers left to work for DC Comics, protesting how he managed things, things were still going well for him. I mean, he was running Marvel during Contest of Champions and Secret Wars. So, he had some wins. But he was fired in 87. And 2 years later, he teams up with a lawyer friend of his named Steven Masarski, and they actually tried to buy Marvel Entertainment first.
Whoa. Yeah,
this was one of those things where Marvel, like in the late 80s and early 90s, they were not doing great financially. And they tried, they failed, they were unable to buy, so they decided to launch their own company. Maybe blackjack and hookers were involved, but regardless, Voyager Communications happened, and Valiant Comics kind of stepped in as their publishing wing. And so, some of the biggest names in like art and writing when it comes to comic books worked for Valiant, like in the early 90s. Like Art Nichols was involved. I know John Byrne did some work for them. Barry Windsor Smith. I mean, these are some pretty good names. And Shooter wrote a lot of stuff. And the first one, 1991, the first comic published by Valiant was, in fact, Magnus Robot Fighter. And he's, we'll get into some of the character designs because, man, some of these designs are pretty crazy. My first encounter was Solar, the Man of the Atom. Kind of looks like Cyclops, but in a red bodysuit, with like a nuclear symbol on his chest, if that made sense.
Yeah.
And it was one of those where like they really kind of zone in on sci-fi and fantasy, and you might not realize there are some characters that are super famous that actually came out of Valiant. Turok the Dinosaur Hunter is a Valiant character.
I did not know that.
Oh. Yeah. You've got, like I said, Magnus. I believe Exo Man of War had like a crossover video game with Iron Man in the mid 90s on the Sega Saturn, of all things. And of course there's Bloodshot, which I can't remember. Was it Vin Diesel that was attached to that movie or Dave
Yeah, it's a
Bautista? It
somewhat
was one of
recent
them.
movie within the first, last 5 years. I think the movie came out,
Yeah.
and I actually rented it just to trying to be familiar with somewhat of a character of Valiant, and it was okay. It's just your standard action movie, very sci-fi. Like I read a little bit of the comics as well, and the comics seem a little bit more mercenary, military-esque, I guess. This movie was definitely more in the sci-fi
Yeah.
realm, and it was a fun action movie. I mean, it was just it was worth a rent. Let's just say, for
Yeah,
sure.
and they were kind of ahead of the curve when it comes to like social issues and stuff like that for their time.
Mm.
I mean, there was a book called The Second Life of Dr. Mirage that had an interracial couple as its main characters, which today is like
Mm.
whatever. But back in
Yeah.
the early 90s, it was like, oh, wow, you can't do that. But yeah, it was like an Asian guy and a black woman. And
Oh.
the whole story kind of lied in the fact that one of them, I think it was the guy, he became intangible. And that made things a little bit difficult for their marriage. But it was a fun story. A lot of these delved into like some really weird stuff as well. Let's see. I'm just kind of like thumbing through my notes, and it's very 90s. I mean, a lot of the stuff is
Yeah.
very 90s. That's how I kind of came across it. Was like Dollar General. You buy like a pack of comics, you get 5 comic books in it, and
They
it's
definitely. It doesn't seem like they went more with the standard superhero stuff, right? Like it
no.
didn't. There's no like real big flashy costumes. Not, I don't know, is there a lot of team ups? Or big groups
There's
in
not a
those
whole lot of
comics?
crossovers either. A lot of the
Hmm.
stories were kind of self-contained to their books.
Okay.
There wasn't a whole lot of crossovers, which on
Hmm.
one hand made it kind of what's the word, welcoming to new readers, because you didn't need
Yeah.
to know like
Right.
who Bloodshot is or who Ninjak is, which by the way, Ninjak is a great name. It's a ninja with a K at the end,
Oh, that's good.
and he's dressed like a ninja. I mean, it's everything I need to know right up front. And they even had a couple of purchasers over the 90s whenever they started to slow down.
Hmm.
Video game developer Acclaim tried to buy them at one point.
Oh,
And that's what led to like the Turok Dinosaur Hunter video game and the Shadow Man video game, and
oh, wow.
the Iron Man and Exo Manowar with that crossover. But
That's interesting.
Acclaim didn't hold on to them for too long because the game sales didn't sell well. Because again, Valiant
Hmm.
is one of those smaller imprints; not a lot of people know about them,
Yeah.
and the whole like history of Valiant, well, the future of Valiant was in question in 2004 when Acclaim went bankrupt,
Hmm.
and they ended up being bought by a bunch of entrepreneurs in 2005, and Valiant Entertainment kind of got a reboot. And with that, you started to see more of the flashy costumes and more of like the science
Wow.
fiction
Yeah.
focus, and more of the interconnected stuff. And other than Bloodshot, I know that they were working on a few other properties. Like I believe CW was developing a Dr. Mirage series at some point.
Whoa.
It ended up falling through because CW now doesn't want anything to do with superhero stuff.
Yeah, they run their course.
Yeah, but I mean, Superman and Lois, what a hell of a way to end. But I
Yeah.
will say this. Faith is probably one of the most popular newer characters of the last 10, 15 years. Like this heavy-set woman who's got superpowers, and she's a Valiant Comics creation. In fact, June a couple years ago, there was like work that got started on adapting Faith into TV and movies. So it looks like
Oh,
Valiant
fun.
does have a few irons in the fire. So I mean, I know you saw the movie and you read Magnus Robot Fighter, which I love the costume, where it's almost like this ancient Grecian guy, but like his legs are
Yeah.
exposed, and he's
Yeah. Yeah.
kicking robots in the head. It's a good time.
Yeah. That's fun.
Did anything really kind of stand out to you as far as like the Valiant publishing line?
I guess just that it was very, not very flashy. Like I said, there's no skin tight suits.
Yeah.
There's no large team ups there's no equivalent of Avengers or Teen Titans of that company. But I did like the the sorry, I'm trying to think the mercenary part of Bloodshot. I enjoyed. It was kind of violent too.
Yeah.
Enjoying my stuff kind of more adult. So that was a lot of fun, and I mean, especially in the '90s, like when X-Men and even on some Wonder Woman, they kind of started doing sex draws. So they started making all
Yeah.
their characters wear a lot of skimpy stuff, and they weren't really doing that. I know there was that character, a Ray, that kind of ninja girl.
Yeah.
She has like the symbol on her forehead. That was like the only one I remember being like kind of in that camp. But even her costume design wasn't super skimpy. So I kind of I applaud him for the not having to follow those trends. Um, so it's like good for them because they're relying more on their stories rather than like just eye candy, which
Yeah.
is good for them.
Yeah, because like it's kind of like the easy way out, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
But
yeah, they who's reading, usually young boys, and if they don't have the quality of good stories, it's like, oh, let's just throw some TNA in there and let the kids buy these books. Um,
I forgot to mention there was a couple of characters that I really enjoyed that they're just kind of stupid. Archer and Armstrong. It's
oh,
based.
okay.
I mean, it's like one guy looks like a football linebacker, the other one looks like if Jimmy Olsen had a buzz cut.
Oh
And
wow, okay.
I mean, Archer's like he's supposed to be the world's greatest hand-to-hand fighter. Armstrong is an immortal warrior who does not want to fight.
Oh,
And
that's
yeah, it's a
oh,
pretty funny book. You can pick up the entire run from the '90s for like $15 if you look for like the Valiant Classic
oh,
Collection. It's easy to find that.
oh,
In fact,
nice.
the Classic Collection is a great way to kind of pick up a whole bunch of the '90s stuff. You can find it on
Mm,
Comixology and other
yeah.
digital storefronts because they've got Exo Manowar, like a collection of them. I believe they've got a Bloodshot collection. I don't know if they've got a Solar collection. Really, that was the character
Mm,
that always, because he looked so much like one of the classic superheroes with the, he
mm.
looks like Cyclops, and so those were the books that I kind of like gravitated towards. And the writing was more like Star Trek, which was really cool.
Oh, yeah. I'm actually that's the one I started reading was the Bloodshot collection,
Yeah,
and it threw me off because it starts off on number like 6,
right.
which I'm guessing is just maybe this particular arc, and then it crosses over with Eternal Warrior, which is a character I'm not familiar with, and so just reading this collection, it's like, okay, it's a really nice way to get familiar with these characters as well as like how they team up, and they're doing the same thing like the other companies are doing with these crossovers, because whenever you pick up a trade with DC or Marvel, and it's following a particular storyline, yeah, it's going to be jumping from title to title.
Right.
So I feel like, yeah, that's a great way of, if you're wanting to be familiar with these characters, yeah, get these collections because you'll kind of, it's in one fell swoop, you'll start seeing all these characters interact and what they could do, and it's not a lot of you don't need a lot of research. It's just jump right in and you'll see if you like it or not. So it's nice to do that.
Well, as you guys know, the week 3 episodes usually go about 15 minutes. We're getting close to that. I do want to point out that some of the enemies, the bad guys in these comics, are just absolutely insane. Like spider aliens. There's something called the Mother God, which
Yeah.
is the same. She was exposed to the same energies that created solar, so like nuclear power stuff. But she ended up going mad and basically wants to recreate the universe, and that's
Cool.
fun. Those are
Yeah,
those are
that's good
fun
stuff.
ones.
Good
Think
times. Yeah.
Think Thanos, but beautiful woman.
I like it.
Yeah. So, but all right. So you've learned a little bit about Valiant now. I think I'm going to try to track down some of their stuff. What about you? Is Valiant going to start showing up on your pull list?
You know what? I think I might because I want to say Bloodshot is ongoing right now, or there's a
Yeah.
recent series that just started. So I wouldn't mind, yeah, because I did enjoy the movie. It was a fun character. And I said I'm reading the classics now, and I'm liking what I'm seeing. I know it's probably not gonna be the same, and I do
No.
have a few mixed titles in my Comixology library, so I'll keep digging in. Yeah, I'll check out. I'll see what they have to offer. I'm always willing to support. I know they're not an indie company, but I love comics and I love reading new stories, and so yeah, you might see some singles pop up on my list.
Right. Well, they're one of the smaller companies, but it's just a reminder to our audience that no matter how big or small the company, if you look hard enough, you will find stuff worth reading. And
Absolutely.
I wholeheartedly recommend Comixology Unlimited. I also recommend Hoopla. Hoopla is free if you've got a library card in most cities, and that is a great way to read digital comics as well. So, man, Paul,
awesome.
thank you so much for jumping on to this call and hanging out with me and talking Valiant Comics.
I mean, it was a pleasure. Anytime, I'll be there. It's a great honor. So thank you.
No. Well, hey, thank you. And just a reminder, everyone, you can find all of our stuff at dkpodcast.com. You can join our Discord, chat with people like Paul. He's named Gun Graves on the Discord. You even get early access to every episode. So we will see you guys in a week for another You Want Me to Watch What? And remember, everyone is a geek for something.